going to get rolling. Thank you for joining us. We present a monthly webinar with timely topics and try to do one each year designed to help small business owners continually improve their business, their experience, as well as their team and customers' experience as well with those businesses. So with that, we'll dive in. Good news. The percent of businesses that fail is not 90%. It's only 65.3%. Still not a very great number. If you were to dig a little deeper, you'd probably find out some of the ones that are fortunate enough to survive are probably owners that are not getting paid and certainly not getting a profit distribution. So hopefully at the end of this, you're going to feel a lot better about the prospects for your business, and not be just thinking about not failing, but hey, I've got ideas on how to thrive. And that encompasses taking control of your cash flow. And in 2026, the new mantra is always profit first. So a little legal disclaimer, we're presenting this information to help you, and we have no problem with you using it. Just let us know if you're going to use it, and if there's something in here that you're not sure of, or something that you want us to help you with, jump on our calendar. We'll see if we're a good fit, and then also let you know how we would work with you. So no, this is not a presentation on pirates. However, at one time we thought the earth was flat, and hopefully at the end of this presentation you're going to say the formula for profit that we've traditionally used is not too dissimilar to the way we looked at the shape of the earth. So the traditional thinking is, when it came to budgeting and plans for cash flow for the new year, consisted of, hey, we'll take last year's, add 10%, and that happened over and over again, and we're just comparing it to the prior year. However, it doesn't really deal with anything except for the revenue. And in most cases, that plan is very generic and doesn't really provide any sort of operating plan that is realistic for getting the business owner and the business to a better spot. It leads to grow, spend. And essentially, it's the old formula: sales minus expense equals profit, and shows up like this. So the owner is hoping that the profit will show up if they hit their revenue targets. They're not sure what money they can spend, and they're experiencing constant cash flow pressure because they're out of control with their cash flow. They work hard but don't feel rewarded. As I mentioned earlier, most of them are not receiving any sort of compensation for all the efforts that they're putting in. Profit First fixes this by changing how money flows through the business, and leverages Parkinson's law, which says that demand rises to the level of the resource. We've all had one of those tube of toothpaste where we're able to squeeze one more brush out of it. this is how it is in a business with expenses. There's so many demands on that revenue. So unless there's any intention with it, it's going to get spent. And that's where if you only have a revenue plan, it's going to show up as grow, spend, grow, spend, grow, spend. Some owners don't even take into account saving for taxes. So they follow through on that plan. The revenue grows by 10% and they end up owing Uncle Sam a giant chunk of money at the end of the year, and they're paying exorbitant interest rates, and they've got threats to levy their accounts. So need a better plan for an entrepreneur, one that leverages the behavior of the entrepreneur. And that is profit first. First off, it's simple and it's doable. And it's essentially taking whatever revenue is collected and moving it into profit and then into expenses. So whatever's left over after the profit allocation is available for expenses. Now, the owner needs to be motivated to follow through on this, because they're going to have to do with whatever is in those expense accounts to pay for whatever demands there are on that, on those funds. It's not too dissimilar to getting in shape. It doesn't happen automatically. We've got to limit the size of the plates that we consume. We got to prioritize stuff that's good for us, like veggies. We've got to resist temptation, and then we've got to limit the frequency. So small plate portions, good stuff that's nutritious to us. That's where in profit first, we're allocating to a profit account. That's good to our mental sanity with everything you have to deal with as a business owner. At least you should get paid. And if you can get a profit distribution on top of that, that cures a lot of the pressure that you're feeling. We're leveraging with profit first the behavior of an entrepreneur that manages their cash and accounting by the bank balances. So we're leveraging the idea of the entrepreneur logging on to their online banking and see what the balance of their accounts are multiple times throughout the day in some cases. So here's how it works. Here's how the profit first plates work. So we've got revenue coming into one account labeled income. That's the serving tray. And then we're allocating to these accounts: profit first, owner pay, taxes, and then whatever's left over goes to operating expenses. So it's very simple, and there's targets based on the revenue of the business, because remember, revenue is driving the allocations. So if we start on the left side with a really small business, these are probably startups, revenues under 250,000, you can see that the profit allocation is 5%, and 50% is going to the owner's pay. Now, in a small business like this, most cases, the owner is doing everything. There might not even be an employee, and that's why there's such a heavy allocation to owner pay. But at least they're getting paid, and at least they're getting some sort of profit distribution. If we look all the way over to the right, owner pay drops from 50% as a business grows down to 0. In this case, when you've got a business that has revenue of 10 million plus, you've got people to do that. So you've got a management team. You may even have a CEO and a CFO. So that's where you become more of an investor. And if we look at these percentages, the profit percentage is 20%. Now that's 20% of revenue. That's not 20% of profit. So that can be a pretty substantial number when you consider this comes into play when revenue hits 10 million. But it's a sliding scale. And one of the things that I like about this is it allows for the entrepreneur to continually improve financially. And in rolling these out as profit first professionals that have been rolling out businesses for years, we will take into account where that business is at the start. And if they're at 10% profit allocation, we may start them out for the first quarter at 2%. And then as they hit it, move it up. So one of the other principles is the order of the allocations. Again, the first allocation is to profit, and that's where profit first comes into play. Second is to owner's pay, who's the owner's taking the risk, and then to the taxes, and then whatever's left over is going to OPEX. So the idea is to remove the temptation. Remember back the Parkinson's law, that the demand rises to the level of the resource. So we've moved the funds allocated for profit into a separate profit account to remove temptation. And now this system goes a little farther because we know the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur wants to get their vendors paid no matter what. So there's a second bank that we introduce for the profit account as well as the tax account. Because the profit distribution is happening only quarterly, and the tax account is only getting drawn on quarterly with the estimated taxes. So we're pulling it out of easy access for the entrepreneur and setting the entrepreneur up for success by introducing this second bank. The other principle is the frequency. So we want to keep it simple, and the author, Mike Michalowicz, has a 10-25 rule, where on the 10th of the month, he does the allocations and the transfers, and then also on the 25th. Now, in my experience, everyone's a little different. Personally, I like the weekly. You get a nice little cadence going, and every week on whatever day you pick, you're expecting to move money. One of my clients she likes to allocate and move on Mondays. She calls them Money Mondays. Now at the quarter, that's when you're distributing the profit. And so the idea of the profit distribution is it's designed to reward you for being disciplined. So even in the early stages of rolling out profit first, if there's not much in the account, when you get that profit distribution, you're supposed to do something with it that you normally wouldn't do. One client had a $500 profit distribution, and it looked like renting a room up in Lake Geneva, for a couple nights and taking his family. So the idea is to do something. And in that scenario, it wasn't extravagant, but the family said, well, why are we going up to Lake Geneva? We never go up to Lake Geneva. And that's part of it. Now the family's expecting, oh, wow, did you get your profit distribution? So all of these help reinforce the small changes in behavior that the entrepreneur is making. And then there's nothing worse with having a tax bill and no money to pay it. Profit first, remember, it's putting the money into the tax account with the allocation and then moving it to a second bank. That's so that the money is there for taxes. Now, fortunately, if you've been in some of our earlier webinars, the big beautiful bill extended the tax rates, which are historically some of the lowest that we've ever experienced in America. So those tax rates may be high, and you may end up with excess funds in that tax account come the end of the year. That's fine. It just shows up as an extra profit distribution for you. If you're saying, well, hey, I don't have control of my cash flow because I've got a lot of debt. I have to take care of that before I can roll out profit first. No. Profit first is the ideal way to deal with the debt, because on that profit distribution, maybe 90% of it goes to the debt and 10% goes to you. So you're still getting a profit distribution, and you've got a very simple, doable system and a way to chunk down and eradicate that debt. So we're such big proponents of profit first because we've seen how it works for entrepreneurs and small business, that we have it as part of our basic small business system. And so we want to help entrepreneurs restructure their cash flow so they set profits aside and get profits. They get paid predictably so that taxes are planned, they're not feared. I've talked to numerous small business owners that say, I can't believe how much tax I'm paying. I said, in most cases, it's because they waited till the end of the year to make any tax payments. So they've been earning money throughout the entire year and not doing anything about it until the last day of the year. It's gonna feel big. And it's going to create some fear and anxiety. And then you're creating a mechanism where you're controlling your expenses as you go. So every time you allocate, that's what you've got to pay your expenses. So you're controlling your expense level naturally. So this is not very complex. It doesn't require extraordinary willpower. But it creates some financial boundaries. And if you're an entrepreneur that wants to always profit first in 2026, this is the best way you can ensure that you're going to. So with a system like this, it encourages you to be accountable. Remember the example of the profit distribution and doing something extra to kind of solidify the reward for being accountable and sticking with the plan. So we've got some extra time, and with that, I'm gonna open it up for questions. All right.
Hey, Tim, no question, but what a great job. This was excellent. So really appreciate the invite.
Thanks, Chris. Well, hey, if you think of a question or you want to explore it more, just a couple closing thoughts is what's great about this is it allows you to be continually improving your financial approach to your business. And if you're not sure where to start, you can use this QR code to book a meeting. And we'll sit down and talk about how Profit First could be deployed in your business and answer any specific questions that you've got. So thank you all for joining us. One last chance to ask any questions. Great. Well, hey, we'll see you next month.